Any war comes at a cost. There's always someone caught in the crossfire. And I suppose that's what this play does. It moves from the magnitude of international war and national struggle for independence into the lives of three brilliant, ordinary people who desperately want their freedom, yet find themselves deeply compromised by events that swirl around them.
We're so delighted to be live streaming Fishamble, the New Play Company's production of Embargo by Deirdre Kinahan in association with Iarnród Éireann and Dublin Port Company. We're here at the moment in Connolly Station and we're live streaming with Media Coop from the Pump House in Dublin Port. Two of the key locations in the play really, and two places where the workers 100 years ago instigated the arms embargo, refusing to handle weapons and transport soldiers coming through the port or the railway stations during the War of Independence. So it's a really important moment of civil disobedience 100 years ago that we're very proud to present.
And I think a really important part of this is the role that the labour movement played in the whole role of independence. We don't hear about that. We hear about the boys with guns, we hear about the ambushes, but actually what made Ireland ungovernable was the refusal of the general population to cooperate with authorities. And this embargo was a huge part of that.
Unfortunately, obviously we were originally supposed to be in the beautiful Connolly Station here, and that wasn't able to happen when the live audiences were no longer allowed. And so we're now in the beautiful Pump House, and we've again reconfigured our brains, and we're just there, and we're very, excited and privileged to be able to share it in this new form.
And so the last few weeks and months have been full of ups and downs as we worked with how we would deal with various restrictions and keep all our audiences and our artists safe, obviously.
I think doing a play, the way that you approach it and the way that the live aspect happens, the adrenaline, the fear, as one of the actors said, you don't have that in the same way if it's a film or a TV as you do when you've got a live audience in the moment sitting in front of you. The fact that it's happening live, the butterflies and the adrenaline will certainly still be there. So hopefully what the audience are seeing is as near to that experience as it would be as if they were in the room with us.
So we really hope you enjoy it. Thanks so much to all our audiences for joining in this slightly new way to experience this production of Embargo.
My mother was a whore for the Greeks. Not in a literal sense. No. Not Helen of Troy, like. She just loved their stories. And so my mother was all I could think of as that one-eyed fuck, Francis Deavy, thrust his fist into my mouth, stripped the shirt from off my back, and pushed me face down into that wet, meath muck. A suffocating blend of shite and stone and water. You were found to be a traitor to your country. Let this be a warning to you and all other railway scabs. And so it came, thick and fast, the hot black tar burning down onto my head and back like lava. It took 3 of them to hold me down and treat me to a shower of kicks as the odious solution found home in every crease and every fold of my twisting carcass. And then the feathers, like a sprinkling of castor sugar on a charred sponge, too lumpy and contorted to deserve it. White feathers, like those that Daedalus fastened onto his son's wings. Their purpose was to shame. But thanks to the Mammy and her Greeks, I think it was those feathers that set me free. The Mammy, you see, put great store into the lessons of Icarus and Medea and all them tortured creatures, with their longings and betrayals, their divine copulations and violent ends. She'd hop home from the Carnegie Library after a full day working the markets, with a book under her shawl and the meager makings of a dinner. Myself and the brother mopped up our gravy to tales of endless wandering, murder, and raging kings. Not exactly standard fare for the teeming, barefooted residents of the Marsh, Cork City. The brother, who later found his try in the weekly broadsheet on Clive Sullis, tried to bring her over to Cuchulainn. But the Mammy decided that Owl Coo wasn't a patch on the Greeks. She stuck to Achilles, Hercules, Odysseus, and all them handsome, if troubled, foreign fellas. And so it was her kind, wrinkled and smiling face that shot into my head that day when the boys treated me to their tar, their feathers, and their savage humiliation. Mammy always said I flew too close to the sun, and now I'd have the burns to prove it. Rage is a curious event, isn't it? And it was rage that gripped me in the aftermath of their IRA beating. When they tarred me, when they feathered. And it was rage that granted me the strength to snap myself from off that post, tear the ropes they tied around me, and march, Spartan-like, back into Kells railway station.
You've got to get me out of here, mister!
But Kells is the end of my story. I come here so I can go back to the beginning.
You've got to get me out of here, mister! If you don't, they'll surely kill me!
That was how it started. How my end started. Just 2 days before the beating in Kells, in the cab of the 10 a.m. passenger and goods, Dublin to Belfast.
I jumped into the cab. It was the 10 a.m. passenger and goods,
Dublin to Belfast.
I was wild. I was terrified. The peelers were hot on my heels. I knew I had crossed some invisible line from sane, from safe, from struggle to forsaken. I knew I was in mortal peril now. But the truth is, I had straddled that line for most of my life. Until that morning, in those teetering times, revolutionary times, times of convulsion and danger.
I was due to fire the 10 a.m. passenger and goods, Dublin to Belfast. I was due to stoke up the old engine and see us off onto the coastal plains of North County Dublin, my favourite route on the Great Northern Railway, where the spray of sea would kill myself and the driver as we tore through our blessed and beautiful country. I was only a few months on the job, having abandoned my apprenticeship at Green's Apothecary, much to my outfit's chagrin. My outfit was a coward, a mortification, for he had turned his back on the war that was raging all around us, preaching pacifism and caution and sensible living, instead from behind the safety of his grocery counter, howling out at the assassinations and murders being carried out by his fellow countrymen, burying his head in the bags of flour or tins of peaches, or issuing out warnings and lamentations from atop his trembling newspaper. My father, I vowed I would never be like him. I vowed I would never be a willing bond slave to the British. So I sought out the IRA as soon as I left school, which was no trouble at all in Dublin. My teacher out in Rathfarnham was a master ferry, a Gaelic League enthusiast, notorious for swaying off the usual course of study into intoxicating tales of Irish kings, Irish warriors, penal times, crappy boys, the Grey Hunger, land wars, transported Fenians, the wounded Parnell, the brilliant O'Connell, and of course, our two beloved Pierce brothers murdered at Kilmainham in 1916 for their love of country. We were every one of us as we walked into his classroom, revolutionaries in the making. I got sworn in at 16, like most of my childhood friends, to the IRA Dublin Brigade 4th Battalion by Sean Doyle. The very Sean Doyle that was shot in the back by the murderous British soldiers only a month before this beginning, and he out unarmed on manoeuvres on Kilmashow Kill. But that there is a different story. On the morning in question, this morning, I was walking the road from home to Amiens Street Station when two of the boys tracked me down. "Jack," they said, "we've news."
You've just got to get me out of here!
All right, missus. What's the panic? And with that, she produced some class of a hook. Blood, fresh, dripping off of it. Jesus, what have you there?
Never mind what it is. Just drive the bloody train.
We're not due to leave till 10.
It's too late. Too late.
It's less than 40 minutes off.
But they saw me, I'm sure of it.
Who saw you?
Please, mister, you've just got to get me out of here.
I will, if you'll stop wheeling that bloody thing.
I'm not afraid to use it.
I can see that. Whose blood is it on it?
A bastard. A bastard's blood. I think I killed the bastard.
Who?
It was at the back of the pump house. And I ran. And they see me. I know they see me.
Who?
The Dockers. Some of the Nevin gang. That's who Mick and my husband used to walk with. They'll know where to go. They'll know where to send them.
You send who?
The Paulus, of course. They'll go to our house on Moss Street or surely follow me here.
The Polis.
Isn't that what I just said?
All right. But I need... Will you please just put that thing down? And then we will see what we can manage.
But why? Why would I trust you?
And she locked her eyes onto mine. Dark, black eyes. Like coals. Lines of hurt and hardship carved deep beneath the lashes. Because I've no reason in the world to hurt you. And so we froze there. For just a moment. Trust, don't trust. Scream, don't scream. Kill, or be killed. And to think that I thought I had left the war behind.
I only wanted a job. A day's work for my brother, Jimmy. He was home from Liverpool with the work dried up. Jimmy was a drinker, but all I had after Mick died. And he had a good heart, and he wanted to help. And he was my only hope to feed the kids. And he'd been down the docks for weeks now, trying to get a start. Standing out on the reed in all weathers, hoping to get the nod from Kieran, the bastard. But it's you, and you, and you. Because that's what it was down the docks. Kieran and his like, gods on a trust, holding the whole cargo of work with the power to parcel it out every morning to you, and you, and you. There's nothing regular about working the ships, nothing sure. You took your chances every morning competing with the next man for the chance to lift your shovel. He was a stevedore with no heart, Kiernan, and no loyalty. The king of kickbacks and shillings left in matchboxes and No one got a job in the North Wall unless they put a whiskey down for him, the pub the night before. I knew Kiernan all my life. He had an eye for me from the time I turned 13. That's how I got my Mick, his spot on the house gang with regular work for years. Through Kiernan's eyes and Kiernan's hands. Thank God, though, Mick never knew. Mick wasn't from Dublin. He wasn't from a docker's family, so he'd have never got a job if I didn't give Kiernan what he wanted. But Mick died. My fine, strong man. His ackle lungs weren't made for Dublin. His ackle lungs were made for the Atlantic mist, not the choke and tar and violence of this city. Dead from shoveling coal, from ship hole to tub and tub to cart. Dead from sucking in the dust, the grain, the smoke and the potash for nigh on 10 years. Dead and soon forgotten as the docks swung back up to the ships for Palgraves, Carricks or George Bell. All them hungry hands lifting hungry shovels. And no one there to lift for me and mine. So I had to go down to try and get a day's work for Jimmy so that we could eat. And I knew Kiernan would be in the back bar at the Rail Hotel. I knew he'd be sitting in that small leather chair, sniffing his whiskey and counting his coins. Always there, just before 11. So I put on a bit of rouge, and I put on this blessed rag, my best dress, and I went down the Rail Hotel. And I opened the small back door, and I stood there in the shadows, offering all I had left to me. If he'd just give Jimmy a start, if he'd just give Jimmy a few days' work. And then Kiernan followed me out, the bastard, and on around to the pump house, where he put one hand to me breast and the other to me throat, spitting. Tell me, what makes you think when I can have me pick of all the young ones that I waste me cream on a shattered old pig like you? And then he laughed hard, right into me face. Rage is a curious event, isn't it? An eruption so great it might change the course of a life, just as lava might change the shape of a mountain. And it was rage that gripped me in the aftermath of Kiernan's rejection, Kiernan's laughter, Kiernan's boo. And it was rage that granted me the strength to snatch that docker's hook from off the window ledge and tear it across Kiernan's face, Kiernan's eyes, and knock the bastard smack back onto the cobble before I ran lunatic-like out onto the quay and up here to Amiens Street Station. So you see, mister, I have to get out of Dublin.
She had a pal, she said, up there in Belfast. A pal that was like a sister to her.
She'll get me out.
They used to work together in Jacobs.
We strike together, march together, marry together, dreamed, schemed and bore children together. If I can get up to Greta, she'll hide me. I know she will. She'll get me out and she'll get the kids up after. I know she will.
But are you sure you killed him?
There was blood spurting out the back of his head and he fell. I wasn't hanging around to find out, was I? Please, mister, I can't afford to go to jail, not this time. Not when I've 4 children, they'll perish. Please, I'm begging you, please, get me up to Belfast. Then I can make a plan.
All right. But put the bloody hook down, will you? I'll just have to square this with my fireman. I don't know why he's late. But sure, you can squirrel in under there. I'll get you as far as Belfast.
God bless you. God bless you, mister.
I had a skip in me step that morning. I can still feel it. That skip we all had in the beginning. After months of being out on manoeuvres, months of training, months of trekking over wild hills and vying for shot practice, months of making and testing our own tin can explosives. This was real. This was me finally doing something real. My first strike for an Irish Republic.
She folded herself into a corner of the cab, crumpling with relief. Silent now, still. save for the frayed green ribbons of her bodice rising, the only sign of life.
Green ribbons. For Greta's wedding. I got that dress made by a tailor on Great Britain Street. Such an extravagance. And only 3 months after the own big day. It was early summer 1913, and me and Mick and Greta and Joe, we were all part of one big family, the Union family. And we all had jobs, despite the strikes. And Mick and I set up our own little house on Moss Street, where there were just 2 families living there. And I, after coming from a tenement where there were nearly 90 of us swarming about the place, with little or no family, only the kindness of me Uncle Jim. It was me Uncle Jim took me in after me mother died, much to the annoyance of his own wife Nan, who had a growing brood of her own, so I never felt like I belonged. Just another scrap on the scrap heap, foraging for food or for a bit of love. I got to work early, I did, dropping messages for the neighbours or delivering parcels as a child, washing windows, washing steps. I even worked for a time at the Rail Hotel, scrubbing vegetables, scrubbing pots, carrying water through the kitchens. That's where Kiernan spotted me first. He'd come in of a morning after doling out the work on the docks, the thick red head of him bending down over a small glass. He used to think he was a giant back then, the size of his great bulk, squeezed into that leather chair in the back bar, where all the carpet sellers and commercial travellers would dispense and display, brag and barter, swindle and sell. And he had the ear of everyone, Kiernan. He played friend to all men. The bosses, the union, the workers, the polis, the shinners, the clergy, the volunteers, loyalists, socialists, parliamentarians. He was friend to all, because he believed in nothing, and he believed in no one but himself. And he'd appear out of nowhere, so silent for the size of him, with his rough hands and his thick shadow and his bristle, hard as a scrubbing brush. I used to dread him, but he wasn't a man you could say no to. But then, Mrs. Hardyman, the manageress, got me a job in Jacobs, and I got away from the docks, and away from the Rail Hotel, and I thought I was made. Great days. Great days they were in Jacobs, when I met Greta, and I met Mick, and we fell in love, and the 3 of us sang in the spring of our belief that we could change the world. And Dublin was ablaze with something new, and Big Jim Larkin's fervent speeches had us all talking about workers' rights and workers' power and agitation, emancipation, and we could win. We could win that extra shilling. We could win that 50-hour week. The dockers and drivers, the labourers and servants, the bakers and postal workers, the creamery men and seamstresses, together we could win. And I really believed it all back then. I was carried away on a wave of hope. Yes, real hope, that we could free ourselves from our pitiful existence where we had no say of our own governance or our own country, and we were united, and we were a family, and there I was, in the thick of it, with the most tender of men, holding my hand, and the throat of us, like songbirds, calling out for a better future. And the excitement of it as we took to the streets with our banners and our badges and our youth. There was such a sense of possibility. They were my days, all right. Our days. Great days.
Gracie!
Before the lockout.
You're late.
I know, but
Where were you?
I'm trying to tell you. I got held up by a few of the boys.
What boys?
IRA. They got some information.
Well, good for them. You, however, had best get shoveling, or we'll never make 10 o'clock.
What's this?
What's what?
Who's she?
She's She's none of your business, that's who she is.
I won't say a word.
She won't say a word. We're bringing her with us to Belfast.
I think it was the lockout was the start of the hurt. Months we were out of work, living on nothing. And I expected me first baby. The lockout was a standoff like no other. And then Mick was hit by a police down on Sackville Street during the riot. Bludgeoned he was to within an inch of his life, I'll never forget it. I was working for the press in Liberty Hall, and one of the girls came running in. Jane, they've killed Joe Mick. They've gone and killed Joe Mick. And I ran, crazy, to where she said he was, but thank God he was only knocked out. He wasn't dead, but they beat him up so bad he could barely catch his breath. They stood on his chest, stomped and kicked, ribs broke, head split. And he was never the same. He never had the same strength after. But I was so grateful. I was so glad to have him back, to have him alive and back in my arms, so that we could live out our great days when we were all still mad to be wearing green ribbons
that were snatched and torn, lackluster in their dying sheen. And yet the urge to reach out and touch them still rose. The urge to wrap my clumsy wrist around their regal, tattered softness. Or to place my face in a cushion of lace, get lost in the heat of velvet.
Who's she?
She's none of your business, that's who she is.
I won't say a word.
She won't say a word. We're bringing her with us to Belfast.
What?
Look, don't you be concerning yourself, Jack. Just pick up your shovel. We've to be off in 20 minutes. I've always envied women their fabrics. And not my poor mother's harsh wool, but the cool of cotton on younger girls. Or the precious silks, such as you might see in the shop windows of Cork. It was ribbons got me through the war. Ribbons and rouge and singing. Hard to believe it now, but I was a pin-up. Gracie Grays, the pride of the Munster Fusiliers. I joined the British Army when I was 17, thinking I'd sail off to Greece with the Navy, come face to face with my mother's heroes. But I was billeted in Tralee, given a short blast of training, then sent off to the bloody front. I survived my first battle, Festubert. God only knows how, because I never lifted my head from the mud, and I never lifted my gun. I wasn't cut out to be a soldier. Not like my brother, not like Jason, who fights now with this Irish army. Fights like a demon for an Irish republic. I put on concerts at the front. I did. Concerts. So I could dance for King and Country, sing for King and Country, in makeshift tents and depots and empty barns, to provide some relief from the carnage. There was a troupe of us, a theatre troupe, and our job was to mop up death, to replace lost legs, lost brothers, lost minds, with singing, to suture, to stitch, to pin up dreams of love and future and happiness onto the bloodied walls of the trenches, to sidestep death with illusion, silence the big guns with music, with play acting or penny opera. Magicians we were, conjuring up sweethearts and homesteads, turning ourselves into jokers or kings or beautiful girls. Our bollocks hidden away in the depths and folds of ribbons.
But we're not going anywhere.
What?
What?
That's what I've been trying to tell you. There is a horse box full of soldiers to be brought up on this train
What?
to Belfast.
No.
The front hall is swarming with them.
Not when I came in.
Well, they're there now. And there's guns and all. Two of the boys got word. That's why they stopped me this morning. We're under orders. We're not to drive this train.
Not to drive this train?
Exactly.
What do you mean exactly?
There's an embargo.
Fuck.
What embargo?
Would you bloody believe it?
Believe what?
We're not going anywhere, missus.
What does he mean? What do you mean, mister?
We don't carry guns, and we don't carry soldiers.
Who doesn't?
We don't. Dockers and drivers. I don't. There's an embargo, a strike. It's countrywide. It's been going on all summer.
We don't move their British killers around the country, missus.
No, this can't be. You can't be.
There's a whole bloody troop with them out there, Gracie. Bastard probably planned to board at the last minute.
Yeah, that's what they've been doing lately.
Trying to trick us. But the boys have them copped.
The boys.
What boys?
Irish Republican Army, missus. Oh, this'll be a right standoff. A right standoff. One of many. Sure, the whole country was in chaos. With strikes, curfews, shootings, executions, rampaging bastard black and tans. Ireland was ablaze. And with that fire came fury. Fury fueled by years of silent subjugation to British thieves. And I felt it. I felt it in me bones, I did. And I felt that we could win. I felt this was our time. So when I got that tip off, when I was told that our train was to be filled with soldiers, British soldiers, I was only fucking thrilled. I was only chomping at the bit to add to the mayhem, to make me mark.
We'll have to find another way, missus, to get you out. This train can't go to Belfast.
This train isn't going anywhere near Belfast.
No, please.
I knew Gracie was one of the drivers that supported the embargo. I knew Gracie was one of us. Despite the fact that he once fought in France. Despite the fact that he once wore the enemy uniform. I knew, we knew, word was that he was true. Sure, his brother was a top man in Cork. Jay Grace, a legend if the truth be told. Wreaking havoc out there in the wilds of Skibbereen, Goleen, Bantry.
Burning bridges, burning barracks. My wee brother Jay was a master of the ambush. They say he ran the RIC out of Ballymurphy, out of Bandon, Ballincollig.
Wherever to fuck. West Cork was a no man's land for the Brits. All thanks to Jay Grace. And so our boys could pick off soldiers and police at random. From behind gorse, from behind rocks, and from behind every little farmhouse in the county of Cork. They were the law unto them fucking selves. And not a train of guns or soldiers got anywhere near the south. Jay Grace vouched for Gracie, so there was no man in the IRA that would question that, despite him being a bit of a queer hawk. A bit of a pansy hanging around the music halls and all that.
10 million soldiers to the war have gone, who may never return again. 10 million mothers' hearts must break for the ones who died in vain.
Sure, none of them are right in the head, were they? When they came back from the war. From France, Flanders, Egypt, wherever. None of them were the same. The shelled out faces, stuttering, spluttering, poor legless bastards. Sure, they're all over Dublin, all over the country. Stranded now, lost forever in a no man's land after fighting on the wrong side, at the wrong army, at the wrong war. Some said they only got what they deserved. Some said they were codded into going to war. Some said they were traitors to Ireland. But not Gracie. Gracie was fighting for us now. And Gracie had form.
Just 2 weeks previous, on the Westmoreland Street to Clones.
Gracie refused to drive, on account of rifles being part of the cargo. And when no other driver would take his place, they say an officer stepped up onto the footplate, put a gun to Gracie's head, and said, "You will get the contents of this revolver if you don't drive. But Gracie just kept his hands in his pockets and started singing.
I didn't raise my boy to be a soldier. I brought him up to be my pride and joy. Who dares to place a musket on his shoulder to shoot some other mother's darling boy?
The old officer was apoplectic, cocked his trigger and all. Gracie never missed a note. I loved that story. Loved it. What song was it you were singing? I asked Gracie after, but he wouldn't say.
Sure, we might torment them into leaving.
Was all.
That would save on all the killing. A
Queer hog, all right, with his tales of ancient Greece and his mother, with his singing and his ways. Gracie would rarely talk politics. Said he'd enough of that shite in the war. Said he had no love for Sinn Féin or their sacred republic, only Ireland. I said they were one the same. Gracie said he wasn't so sure. So when I think of it, of that day, and then what he did to Gracie because of it, in Kells, well, I think that it should have never happened. I think it was just one of those things, one of those moments when stars cross, or stars crash, or stars whatever the fuck, and people break, and people. Gracie is my first ghost. My first regret. And I don't regret much. I don't regret most of me killing. I had to be done. I'd do it all again in the fight for freedom. But Gracie, I had no row with him. I had no row with you.
We'll have to find another way, missus, to get you out. This train can't go to Belfast.
This train won't be going to Belfast.
No, no, please.
Have they set up alternative transport, Jack?
Have they what?
Sinn Féin. They usually set up a link to a different line so as not to piss off all the passengers. This train is bloody packed.
How would I know?
Well, what exactly did they say to you?
I told you, guns and soldiers. Why not to drive the train?
So maybe we could smuggle her out.
What?
Was there many police about?
Is half the British Army not enough for you?
She's not running from the army, she's running from the police.
For what? What's she running for?
If we can smuggle her out, then maybe we can get her onto whatever link they've sorted to connect to another line.
Smuggle her how?
I don't know, there's not a lot of time.
Is she some sort of relation, Gracie?
No.
You're a bit scared.
For God's sake.
Then who the fuck is she? Why do we have to be smuggling her out? Have we not enough to contend with? Tell her to go on about her business. You'll have to go on about your business, missus. This train will be going nowhere.
But you said, you promised.
I know, I did.
Well, you'll have to forget his promise. This is war. This is an embargo. And we don't break strikes. You mightn't understand that. This action is for all our freedom.
I mightn't understand. I mightn't understand. Who the hell do you think you are, young fella? Just out of short trousers and the snot on you. I've been standing under red flags since before you could walk. I had my badge and my papers and years of it. But that red flag got wrapped up in green, didn't it? And my dreams of equality became your dreams of an Irish republic. So where the hell is this bleeding republic? Because it's all I hear of these days on the streets, down the lanes, with posters plastered, pamphlets flying, newspapers, shootings and raids, doors kicked in for this republic. Young fella, and kids screaming, and kids murdered, and mothers broken, and fathers dead, and carnage. Yet I'm still waiting. Still, after all these years, almost 10 years, young fella, of struggle and meetings and bullets and beatings, and I still have nothing. And me kids have nothing. And I have to listen to you two arguing over my head like I'm nothing, thinking it's in your power to decide my fate. Well, that's some fucking republic, that is. A republic that thinks nothing of me. Yet a republic that owes me. A republic that took my husband and my youth. Well, I'll tell you one thing. I'll not feed it me children too. I'm finished with it. And if I get arrested, and if I go to jail, my kids will starve. So, if you two need to liberate something, if you two believe in freedom like you say you do, then liberate me.
That's the bloody soldiers now.
It is.
Jesus.
They'll be boarding the boxes. I don't know what we can do for you now, missus.
She can slip through them or jump on that train.
Did you hear a word I said?
Or they'll be up in the cab in minutes. We'll tell them to go fuck themselves, Gracie.
I asked you, did you hear me?
I did! Of course I did. Sure, aren't we nose to nose in this bloody cab? But it makes no differ. You're not my problem. I'm here for the Irish Republican Army.
I know that army. And I know who runs it. And it's not Mick Collins or Mulcahy, no matter what you think. It's the likes of Kieran, mister. Kieran. And those self-same bosses who spat at us during the lockouts. And banned our unions. And brought in scabs. And set the Polish and the British Army upon us. And they are up now in the thickest of green and call themselves Shaw or Meehaw. And they have Sinn Féin in their pockets and every other idiot like you with a gun in his hand because they are like weathercocks, them boys. They know what way the wind is blowing and they are saddling up, just like the clergy, saddling up to ride roughshod over us. That's me and you, young fella. And just you watch. They'll take charge of this new republic and they'll make sure that their trams and their hotels and their banks are kept safe from your revolution.
Would you ever tell her to shut up, Gracie? For fuck's sake, you don't know what you're talking about, missus.
But I do. I do. And I don't want to take your dreams from you, young fella. I don't mean to, because I know your fire. I can feel the heat from here. But I need this train to go to Belfast, or I'm finished.
Tough. It won't be leaving this morning. And with that, the old witch sprang up. With a fucking hook! A hook! The likes of which I'd never seen before. And she was like a lion, eyes blazing, and the nest of hair cut loose and streeling round her face. She nearly took me bleeding head off. But then Gracie
Got her in its grip, and she couldn't manage the two of us. So the hook fell onto the tracks, and she fell back into the corner like a rag doll.
You mad bitch!
Settle down! Settle down, for God's sake, Jack!
She could have killed me. I'm bleeding.
It's only a scratch, you'll be grand.
What the fuck did she do anyway? What the fuck has you running, missus? Is it murder?
Near enough.
It is murder! Jesus Christ!
From the sounds of who she killed, she was doing the Republic a favour.
Then will you get her out? Will you, Gracie? For God's sake, we've real business here.
Will you be all right, missus? Can you stand up? Can you slip off, do you think, before the final whistle? I can't drive it. I can't drive this train now and break the embargo. There must be another way to get you out of Dublin. You'll have to go now, missus, because there'll be hell to pay with them soldiers when we don't move off at 10.
No, I'm not going. No way.
Here, I'll throw her off.
Leave her be, Jack, for God's sake. Come on, missus, please. Them officers will be up in the cab like devils when we don't move off. And if they find you here, they'll hand you over to the police. Or worse.
You said you'd get me up to Belfast.
For Jesus' sake.
What's that?
It's police. There's a few of them coming up the platform.
They're here for me.
Are they looking for someone all right? Moving between the passengers.
That's it, I'm finished.
No, you're not. There's still time to run. Come on now, don't give up.
No more running in me, don't you understand? You were me last hope. They put me back in Mountjoy for killing Kieran, and I'll die there this time. I'm tired, mister. Too tired.
And I knew she meant it. I knew. Because I've seen that light go out before. When men succumbed to the promise of rest. When the incessant Noise and squalor and slaughter of war just became too much. I'd have chosen death myself if the singing hadn't kept me away from the front. I knew there was nothing left in her. So what could I do? Leave the poor woman to her fate? Let the Polis have her? Let her children starve? When there would be other trains, other battles, and other frays I could take up for the Irish Republic. Jack!
What?
I'm stalking her up.
Yo, what?
I made this woman a promise. I'm gonna drive the train.
But you can't.
There's Polis everywhere, army everywhere. She's done for if we don't leave.
She's no one. Nothing.
She's a person, for God's sake. And she could be your mother, my mother.
So fucking what, Gracie? This is war. And you know how war works. You know what this is all for. Oh, come on. We have the bastards on the run, finally. After 800 fucking years. Sure, half the railway lines are closed. And they can't move their killers round to shoot our boys. This is working. We have victory in our sights. And every moment counts. Every refusal. Sure, it's all we have, isn't it? Our refusal. It was all we had. Our refusal to be fucking whipped. All we have, Gracie, is ourselves.
I don't know.
It's not for me, mister. It's for me children. They've no one else. They'll die if I don't get to Belfast.
Would you ever shut up?
And with that, he came at me with a knife. I caught a glimpse of it in the light of the coals.
What are you doing?
She's getting in our way!
But Gracie had the measure of him. And Gracie had the strength to crush him. So Gracie knocked the knife right out of his hand and struck him to the floor. Oh, Jesus! Sweet suffering Jesus!
There'll be no more killing. I said no more.
Oh, you said that, did you? Who did you say that to? To the IRA, was it? Or to your brother? Your own brother who's out there fighting night and day. Your own brother who tosses his life into the face of an imperial army 1,000 times the size of his own. That self-same army you're now willing to drive around the place. An army that murders us with impunity.
Stop it.
Stop what?
I won't hear it. I won't hear any more.
Don't drive, Gracie. Don't. Their bullets will be used to kill our brothers.
For fuck's sake.
You're one of us now.
Am I?
Yes. And listen, I feel sorry for this woman too. I do. I feel sorry for every last one of us that has to live under the enemy's boot. Sure, isn't that why I'm here? Isn't that why we're doing this? Refusing to drive the train. Our freedom is in that refusal.
Not for me. Not for me, it isn't.
War is a bestial thing.
I'm not saying it isn't.
It's a bestial thing. And there's no glory in it.
I know.
But do you? I'm telling you, Jack, I've seen this all before. War will leave only the husk of a man, the shell of a soul.
It has to be done.
No.
No exceptions, no excuses.
But war has all but destroyed this woman. It's all but destroyed me.
I don't care.
No. You don't care. You can't care. And maybe you're right. Maybe your republic will be worth it. I hope so.
That's 10 o'clock.
What are you going to do, mister? What are you going to do?
She's earned her freedom, Jack. She's flesh and blood and love and honor. She just wants to save her kids. I'm driving to Belfast.
Oh, thank God!
Then you're a fucking traitor.
Step out of the cab now, Jack. Take your stand. Refuse to work. I'll take the shit for this.
Oh, you're damn right you will.
God bless you, mister. God bless you.
Cowardly bastard.
Step out. Step out, I tell you.
So Gracie flung the boy out of the cab.
On your head be it. That surely will be your ruin. You fucking queer. You'll be sorry. You'll be sorry when you're right here.
And the flagman waved.
And the train finally spluttered into life.
Carting guns and murderous bastards up to Belfast.
slow at first. The shift of the train. I almost didn't dare dream. The two of us shovelled. Dublin eventually disappeared, and a new and screaming green embraced us.
It was like the years fell off her as we sped north. The familiar seascapes and field gates and wild roses on the track, erasing time and lifting the dread from off her shoulders.
Every station brought back a pocket of strength.
And all the faces of the men I couldn't save, couldn't carry away from the front, seemed to crowd onto that engine with us.
And he kept me hid. A gracious man. A curious man. He shared the bite he had with him, and he sang old tunes until we could see the hills and heave of Belfast.
Where she disappeared. Just a slip of a thing. Another hem, another shawl, another soul into the soup of that city. But not before she planted a kiss. A blissfully soft, uncomplicated kiss onto the face of this
Traitor! He's a fucking traitor! I told the boys when I got home, when I had to explain our failure. Our failure in a time of rage. And rage is a curious event, isn't it? An eruption so great, it might change the course of a life, just as lava might change the shape of a mountain. And it was rage that filled us in those years as we counted the cost of British tyranny and British plunder. And it was rage that finally fueled our guns and tore at our hearts and choked up the skies. As a people we struck, and as a people we rose to change the course of our history. But there is always a man or a woman that gets hit in the fray, caught in the tug, all but destroyed in the crossfire.
Gracie.
I thought he'd only give him a beating. That was the usual punishment for breaking the embargo. But Davy had a savage reputation. And there was something about Gracie that made Davy go all out. Maybe on account of him being ex-army, or on account of his ways. But the boys in Kells wouldn't be done, I heard, with a simple beating. For Gracie, it was the tar and the feather.
I was glad I hadn't to wait too long for whatever reprisal was coming. I had made my bed, and I was up for the fallout so long as the Lady Jane and her kids made it from Dublin to Belfast to Liverpool and on with their living. And sure enough, as I left the railway men's dormitory in Kells for work just 2 days later, what do I see? But a group of the boys waiting outside. And I knew they must have been sent to deliver. Flat caps and burning cheeks. They reminded me of myself, or what I might have been if I hadn't ended up in France. They reminded me of my brother. I went with their little posse, without objection.
And I often think of him now, and his bird-like face, and his gentle eyes. I owe him my life, the beautiful life of my children.
A beating. All he deserved was a real good beating.
But no. They chose to dress me in white. Like a bride to 2 wars. 2 wars I had no stake in. The Irish Republic had no more love for me than the ancient bow. Davy's venom and IRA boots were brutal enough to prove that. Prove that there was no place in Ireland for the likes of me. Gracie Grace was fashioned in the mayhem of France. Rage is a curious event, isn't it? And it was rage that spurred me on as I tore up every seat and every board in that wretched railway station. Rage as I thought of the love of my mother. Rage as I thought of the senselessness of her poverty and her life and mine. But then I heard them. I heard my old pals, my old troop from the trenches. And suddenly I could see them, the ghosts of them, sitting aboard the engine of that oncoming train. Singing in the wind they were, singing for me. And all I had to do to join them was to soar. All I had to do was to lift up my wings like Icarus and fly into the face of it, the face of that oncoming train. Then I was free.
They say that he jumped right into the path of a special. It wasn't stopping in Kells, so there wasn't a hope. They say there was little or nothing left of him, just a scatter of muscle and blood and heart.
And white feathers. And so he returned to feel it all again, to tell it all again.
Ghosts.
Spectres of passions that once drove the world.
Flickers of history.
Phantoms of war.
Because our struggles, our loves, our stories are yours. Before we melt away, back into the walls of time.